On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, part 2 of the conversation, can Nick Caley and Cole Popovich fix this offense? And if so, what does it look like?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, as we go into the weekend, let's do it together. I'm Texans Credential Media member and football analyst John Hickman, alongside the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile. Back at home, Brian Big Sarge Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, before we close out everything, we're getting into the YouTube comments. Some of y'all didn't like my hat that I wore the other day. I thought it was all in context. All of them, right? I got a couple of two supporters out there. They got where I was coming from. But we'll dive into the YouTube comments. And then in the first couple of segments, we'll just look at fixing the offense from the inside out, starting with the offensive line. What does that look like? And how the Houston Texans and the idea of Nick Caley, Cole Popovich can come together to get this team over the hump offensively. We trust D'Amico and the defense will do their job. Offense is where the worries come in at. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5 and you'll win. If you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Big Sarge.
What's going down?
Today, we're Texas analysts, we're Credential Media members, but you are also playing the role of Texans insider. Now, before we dive into how the Houston Texans can get fixed by Cole Popovich and Nick Caley, there was a conversation from the inside of the locker room around the offensive line room and the things that they loved last year, but the things that they didn't love. Can you get into that for us?
Yeah, so after I found out that Cole Popovich was going to be promoted to offensive line coach. So, John, last season, Cole played the behind the scenes, and the person who was in the forefront was Chris Strausser, and I mean rightfully so, because he is the offensive line. He was the offensive line coach. And so when we got an opportunity to speak to Chris Strausser, everybody asked him everything that we wanted to ask him. Hey, what's going on with the offensive line? Why can't you stop the stunts? Why can't you stop the delayed blitz? I think by the time we talked to him, it was week 10, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And that problem had existed since week 2 against the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, even though the Houston Texans were able to win that game, they were able to expose that offensive line and that blocking scheme by doing delayed blitz and running different types of stunts. And everybody knows that the NFL is a copycat league, and so they just kept following. Every other defense just kept following that same trend until, I think, I want to say, John, it wasn't until towards the end of the season when they finally got it together, when they were finally able to pick up those type of things. And so once Cole Popovich was promoted to offensive line coach, a lot of us didn't know who was going to get that position, and then we found out that Cole was up for it. I started to ask around, John. I started to ask around and ask a couple of my sources, what type of offensive line coach is Cole Popovich. Now, throughout the season, you hear different types of things like, we like Cole. Cole's a good guy. Cole does this, Cole does that. But after he was promoted, I was able to get just a little bit more from a couple of sources. And what they said was the internal battle that happened between Chris Strausser and Cole Popovich was Cole was trying to tell Chris Strausser how to fix the issue. Cole was trying to tell Strausser, hey, we're constantly and consistently getting beat by these stunts and these delayed blitzes, and this is how we could fix them. But Strausser was like, no, I'm going to fix it my own way. I'm going to do it this way. This is the way to fix it. If everybody and John, this is the thing This is the thing that this was the overall theme.
Yeah, I was about to.
And the
Was that the
theme,
theme of the offense last year
yeah,
altogether?
yeah, just trust the play, trust the process, trust the process, trust the play. Just keep trusting the play. Just trust it's gonna happen, it's gonna work, it's gonna work. And at some point, it just you realize it didn't work. Hey, Bobby Slowick, it's just not working. Hey, Ben McDaniels, it's just not working. Hey, Chris Strausser, it's just not working. And that's the issue and the problem I think that the Houston Texans office had last season, is that you had too many people who were not listening to the people who could help them fix these type of issues, and they just wanted to do it their own way. And I'm glad that the Houston Texans organization, I'm glad that D'Amico, I'm glad that Nick said we can't have that. If you're in it, because D'Amico can't be in every room.
Yeah.
D'Amico can't be in every room. D'Amico has to trust, and we talked about this a while back, and it's my bad. It was not company commander, it's battalion commander. But D'Amico can't be in every one of these rooms. D'Amico can't be at every positions meeting. D'Amico can't be everywhere at one time. That's why he delegates these duties to others. And so when you have them saying and doing one thing when he meets with the coaches, and then when they break off and they go to their different position meetings, other things is happening. Now you're like, okay, where's the disconnect? And sometimes D'Amico doesn't get a chance to see that until it's game time. Sometimes D'Amico don't know what's going on. Well, what I mean, doesn't know what's going on, meaning that he's not in these rooms. He's only, hearing what's coming from the coaches and talking to the players. And so, John, I did not like the fact that when I started to find out this, and this was, I talked to more than one person. I did not like the fact that the issue and the problem could have been fixed. And it's just that, according to my sources, Chris Strausser allegedly did not want to listen and did not want to do it any other way but his own way. And that's, like I said, that's the overall theme that I had been hearing, which was the exact same way that Bobby Slowick was.
So here's my question to you, just to kind of finish this conversation before we move on. How can they fix the team from the inside out on the field? Does it seem like this is a players wanted move? Like, does it seem like maybe parts of last year, maybe all of last year, and now in the offseason, does it seem like Cole is a guy that can really get the best out of the players that are currently on that roster in that offensive line room? Because to get this offense where it needs to be, yeah, hey, I've heard the stories of how good that defensive line unit room is, how fun it is, how excited they are when they go into those meetings. Offensive line is completely different. It's quiet. So it speaks to maybe those guys in that room just ain't getting along. Maybe the message is falling on deaf ears. But moving forward, I mean, you don't want that to repeat itself. Can Cole basically be the raw right for this offensive line room and get the most out of these guys and coach them up? And now with, I think, a more favorable scheme, quote unquote, maximize the talents of some of the guys like a Juice Scruggs, like a Kenyon Green, who's still on the roster, like a Jared Patterson. Can he get the best out of those guys and also help elevate and coach up Blake Fisher?
John, that is a very good question. Like I really, really like that question. Now, I'm gonna say this. Cole doesn't have the personality that Rod does, because like Rod is just a whole different other, like he a whole different other person, man.
Animal.
And Cole, I don't think that Cole can match that type of energy that Rod brings to his defensive line room. I mean, just that, and then I don't think that and to be fair, those offensive linemen don't operate and move like the defensive linemen do. Oh, the defensive linemen, they have a whole different mindset, John. They are a whole different animal. They're a whole different group. And that offensive line just ain't as rowdy as those defensive linemen are. So when it comes to that part, no. But what I will say is this, is that as much respect as they have for Cole, because you know what it is, they appreciate the fact that Cole knows what he's talking about. John, anytime you're working somewhere and you're working for someone who knows what they're talking about, who's been there before, or knows exactly how to get how to make things work efficiently, That's all that the Houston Texans offense is looking for. Hey, how can we be efficient? Because efficient means that we're constantly moving the ball down the field, scoring touchdowns, not just trying to get in field goal range. And, not losing on, not going 3 and out 4 times in a row, having to punt 4 times in a row. So no, to answer your question, I think that the reception that the players will have coming from Cole is going to be different than what they had with Strausser. Now, John, but let me say this before we move on. Let me say this, because what I can't remember his name, but the assistant defensive line coach, I don't think he's there anymore.
Ali.
Yeah, I think he
Nate
moved
Ali.
on. Yeah, he moved
In
on to
Atlanta now.
Yeah, he's with another team. And so I brought him up to say that, him and Rod Wright, they worked 1-2, they worked in unison, they worked in, making sure that everything was right. John, I also don't want it to be that if players were happy with what Chris Strausser was doing, they would run to Cole, and Cole would also be the one that says, okay, to, I don't want to say pacify him, but tell them everything they want to hear, because the responsibility didn't lie on him. I just want him to realize that once he gets into the position, he has to remember whatever role he plays, somebody else is going to play that role. And so when you step into this position, when you step into being the offensive line coach, that you make sure that whatever you were doing whatever you were doing when you were the assistant, you continue to do when you're the head.
Let's talk about how the Houston Texans can actually fix this team on the field. Let's get into some field work where Nick Caley officially announced the offensive coordinator. Cole Popovich announced the head offensive line coach. What can those two do in unison to get the most out of this offense? We got more on this episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. This show was sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what about if we just spend time focusing more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, like those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy for yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a relationship, friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that love you back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills. It even empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get started, and also to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Now let's talk about fixing the offense on the field. The first thing I want to say when I look at Cole Popovich being promoted to full-time offensive line head coach, Sarge, you know what I like?
What's that?
The run concepts are going to be extremely simpler for the offensive line.
Yeah.
Between 2019, 2020, when Cole was the running backs coach and co-offensive line coach, the Patriots ran, and I know y'all don't want to hear this, but that's his background. The Patriots ran 511 gap runs compared to 272 zone runs. Let me tell you what that does. It allows for easier cutback opportunities for the running backs. When you have a running back like Joe Mixon, that's a positive. When you have a running back like a Dameon Pierce who's still on this roster, that's a positive. He ain't got to do a lot of thinking. It'll take him back to his rookie year where he rushed for nearly 1,000 yards. And from an offensive line perspective, assignments are just much more specified and easier to get to, right? And so that's just looking at the running opportunities. So you look at a team like Houston, saw a lot of Joe Mixon carries resulting to him being hit in the backfield before he even hit the line of scrimmage. This is a major positive for the offense, presumably, if they're able to execute. But I feel like the execution for the presumed scheme will be much more easier than a Bobby Slug in a Chris Strausser scheme. So that's number one. And if there was a reason Texan fans to be excited, and of course the players, if that for a team that had over 250 zone run attempts in 2024. The idea in Cole and Caley's simplicity approach will take an offense that was negative 0.14 rush EPA in the NFL. That's 27th. A 34 rushing success rate. That was 32nd. A bottom of the league offense running the ball. They should be able to get it to more respectable numbers. And for that, and for those who hate to hear about the Patriots, that's okay. Let's look at the last 2 seasons in LA with Nick Caley. 496 power gap runs compared to 374 zone run attempts, according to PFF. So the diversity of all of the backgrounds will come together, guys. And for me, it feels like, you know what? Analyzing and looking at this team, Caley's coming into the building. Hey, Cole, man, we got some opportunities. We worked together before. I trust your judgment. What does this current offensive line do well? I've said on this show, I feel like Houston needs to probably get 3 new offensive linemen. That is extremely difficult. So what do these guys do well, right? Well, things were a little bit easier for them, and they was a little bit more successful when they were able to go heads up, north and south. Okay, I have a background in that area. Let's do that.
John, I will say this. And I like the numbers that you gave in, and I like the fact, and what I said, on a previous show was, yes, blend in what the New England Patriots did, what you learned from that, and then take what you currently learned from from learning from Sean McVay and put both of those in, and then you make that type of thing work. And John, a lot of people, how look, how people are talking about your New England Patriots hat and how much they didn't like that New England Patriots hat. Well, guess what? You're not going to like this take that I'm about to make. John, with this new scheme, with this new system, with, bringing Chris Strausser in, I would love to see, Cole Popovich, excuse me, with Chris Strausser gone and bringing in Cole Popovich, I would love to see Kenyon Green get another opportunity, John. And the reason why I
saw a few people not like that. I put that on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. And exactly. And I've been talking about it because, John, one of the things that he does do is he is a very good run blocker. And, people don't want to give him a pass. I'm not going to give him a pass. Hell, he didn't even give his own self a pass. He even said, hey, look, I did wrong. When I got pulled from the game, I should have got pulled from the game because I wasn't playing good. I wasn't playing well. I was not doing what I was supposed to do. Talk to him at the end of the season. He says it's going to be better. And I'm bringing him up because one of the things that he did very well, John, when he was at Texas A&M, when he was a consensus 2-time All-American, was what? He could run block. Remember they had Isaiah Spiller, and they had Devon Achane there when he was when Kenyon Green was there. And just go back and you look at the numbers as far as the rushing is concerned and what he was able to do in that run game. John, even when he was a rookie, going up against some of the best defensive tackles in the game, Dameon Pierce was still able to run behind him. And so he gets hurt. He comes back, misses a year. He gets into the first year of Bobby Slowick's scheme. And that zone blocking scheme, that's not easy to learn. That's not easy to learn. And so he looked like a fish out of water, of course. And one thing that he's always said that he needed to be better at was pass blocking.
And so my question to you is, even with his run blocking struggles, pass blocking is where he would get completely obliterated. Like, should we still give him a chance, all things considered?
Yes, I feel like you give him a chance, especially if you're going to put him in a type of system like you talked about with Cole, the one that Cole Popovich, will run, or we're assuming that he will run. Because, John, a lot of these guys like to, that zone blocking scheme works well for, a lot of the, let me say it like this, a lot of the lighter offensive linemen that can get out, go. And Kenyon Green lost a lot of weight. I feel like he put, he's going to put some weight back on so he can anchor. But, John, these guys just want to get out. Let's go. Let's smash somebody and let's go. And that's one thing that Kenyon Green is good at. Now, once again, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here saying that Kenyon Green is going to have, that Kenyon Green was the best offensive lineman when he was in the game. He was not. He self-admitted that. But I would like to see if you're going to put him in a different type of position. And I want to see, can Cole Popovich get out of him what they got out of him at Texas A&M. I want to see that, now going into this next year, can they use him? So I say all that to say this, John. When you look at Cole Popovich has a huge task at hand. He has to look at that. And not only does he, Nick Caley does too. Those two are going to have to sit down and look at everything that went bad last year. And I know they're going to implement a different type of offense, but you got to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of what you have. John, if we're being honest here on the Locked On Texans podcast. One thing that Sean McVay could do, no matter who was in the game. Hey, who playing offensive line today? Because John, they went through a lot of offensive line injuries as well, and all they did was kept going. They had injuries at the offensive line. They had injuries at the running back position. They had injuries at the wide receiver position, and none of that stopped Sean McVay and that machine from doing exactly. That's one of those. Hey, trust the process, trust the play.
I'm glad you said that, because what if, listen, you said whoever getting the best out of the guys out on the field, right?
Yep.
What if the real revamping on that offense doesn't come from the offensive line? What if it comes from the wide receiver room?
Hey, man, look, they got two college All-Americans that's been waiting to get real opportunities and not just block here, block there, go here, run this route, stop right here, and you're not going to get the ball, but just be a decoy.
Well, to your point, how many times have you come on this show and said that screen would have worked if they would have blocked better out in the open field?
Yep.
If you're not blocking in this offense from a receiver standpoint, you're not going to be on this team. And I would say this is probably a conversation we should look more into as we get to free agency and the draft time and kick that up. But I would say from a film standpoint, if I'm putting everything on film and I'm looking at it and I'm walking into a new situation, you can make the case Xavier Hutchinson. We're not going to see Jared Wayne here in Houston anymore. You can make the case that John mentioned. You can make a case that some of these guys that has been out there may not fit what the calling is for this offense. And if that's the case, the revamping of offensive line, to your point, I was at a team last year, the last couple of years, when we lost a guy, we were able to keep rolling because the coaching was such on point. So from an offensive coordinator standpoint, my offensive line coach, we have to be in unison, and I need to trust and know you're going to coach whoever's in that room up. But from a wide receiver perspective, if you're not blocking in my offense, I want you out of here. Look at bringing in other guys and getting out guys like Xavier Hutchinson. You can make the case for a John Mechie to not be on this team anymore. You can make the case for a guy like Jared Wayne to not suit up for the Houston Texans anymore. You can make the case for some of these decisions to be made based on the film we've seen from them, based on the fact that presumably in this offense you just won't fit.
Yeah. So John, that's one of the things that we are definitely diving into, especially in the off season, so we can see who's available. Draft needs, going to the draft combine, seeing if there is some of those wide receivers, because you don't have to take the top wide receivers. There's going to be some wide receivers coming out of college that's going to go in the third, fourth round that's going to be able to make contributions to a team. And the Houston Texans, if they don't bring back Stephon Diggs, will be looking for another wide receiver opposite of Nico Collins.
Absolutely. And Puka Nacua was picked in what round?
7th.
What was it? What was his round?
5th or the 7th?
Yeah. So you got two guys in Nick Caley and Cole Popovich coming from teams. Yeah, he was a 5th round pick, coming from teams where they didn't necessarily, for success on offense, they didn't go get a top guy all the time at the wide receiver position. Their offense just works good enough to put guys in position to win.
John, just real quickly, I was going to say that I just want this. I want Nick Caley to be able to install, and I know we could talk about this later on, but I just want them to be able to install something that's quick and can get the offense moving up the field.
Absolutely. Let's dive into the YouTube comments when we come back. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better place to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even battling on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is easy to navigate, easy to use. Plus, knowing that you can bet $5 and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that is the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. FanDuel, bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. And also, Texan fans, this is a great opportunity to keep the game in your hands and to make it more exciting with PrizePicks. The big game is here, and there's no better place to make it more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. You pick more or less on stats projections, on two-player stat projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more, of course, for quarterbacks passing yards. And what I love most, fast, safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in less than 15 minutes. Check out the promo tab to tell any of the Super Bowl Super Sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tell a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can split a pot of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Sarge, one thing we got to mention when looking at fixing this offense from the inside out, to your point, yeah, the ball just needs to come out quicker.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford did it.
Yeah.
Tom Brady did it.
Yep.
We're going to always reference those two guys, right? I mean,
yeah, sure.
That's just what it is. We can reference a Cam Newton because of his time he spent in New England, but we ain't going to do that. We're going to reference. By the time Cam got to New England, trust me, he was not the Cam. He was Cameron Newton by that time. But the two greats quarterbacks we've seen over the past decades, and for one guy the last 20 years, they got the ball out, and it was a much more efficient offense. And so that's what Texan fans really want to see. Good offensive line play, good blocking from the wide receivers, guys getting open, guys fitting into the system, guys creating yak yards, and just good overall efficient quarterback play from C.J. Stroud, and also creating running lanes for Joe Mixon and whoever else will be back there.
John, real quick before we jump into the YouTube comments, I just have one more question for you, just real quickly. So we talked about how the clock is ticking on Nick Caley. Is the clock also ticking on Cole Popovich?
In terms of what do you mean?
What if the line? What if the line comes in and we see no improvement? We see nothing to build off of moving into next year, and by week 4 or 5, they're still dealing with the same issues of not being productive.
Yeah. I mean, this is year 3. Nothing really is going to change for me in year 3, no matter the additions the Texans made, the hirings the Texans made, the promotions the Texans made. Year 3 is a year where year 1 of C.J. Stroud, you got Rookie of the Year, one of the better quarterback rookie seasons we've ever seen. Year 2 was up and down, more so down. Year 3 is where you want to see him rebuild. This is a quarterback's league. This is the NFL in 2025. Your quarterback is going to get you where you need to go. No.
John, and I would love for us to revisit this next week on the Locked On Texans podcast. I would love for us to revisit this. I think that I disagree, and the reason why I disagree with you is because what the Houston Texans got in year 1 is what we would have been expecting in year 3. What year 1 wasn't supposed to be year 1 with the Houston Texans. Like that was a full blown.
Year 1 raises your floor.
Yeah, but hold on. But what I'm saying is that it raises your floor. You're right. But if you're looking at the dynamic of what a rebuild, you're looking at 3 years of rebuilding. The Houston Texans were able to do something, to accomplish things in year 1, in year 2, and now in year 3. You can't have the letdown of going back to, well, we're still rebuilding, because you sped your own clock up in year 1 and year 2, and now you don't have any room, a margin for error to say, hey, we're still in the rebuilding phase. No, you that was year 1 and 2 was supposed to be. And just like you said, I don't even evaluate quarterbacks after year 3. CJ, I could evaluate him after year 1. So I know we'll talk about this next week, but I'm saying that with the clock sped up for the Houston Texans as far as their rebuilding is concerned, I don't think you don't have time, because year 3 would have been
for Cole.
Yeah, for Cole, for a lot of them. For a lot.
I would say specifically to Cole. Cole was here last year. So if you have insider trader knowledge, then you know what moves to make. That's where, and it comes to your point of last year and the disconnect between him and Strausser, that's where there should be no more disconnect. You should take the ideas of the offensive line and what you like and everything that they told you that they want to do better, plug them, and we should see a better offensive line. And if we don't see a better offensive line from week 5 on up, for first 4 weeks, that's an understatement. You get them that time. But after week 5, now it looks like, all right, they just made a mistake possibly.
Gotcha.
And this is a perfect year for the Houston Texans to take the preseason more seriously. As we go to the YouTube comments, my man Motivation by Jim. If anything, this is when new OC, New Expectations podcast, Ken Caley unlocks CJ Stroud in the Texans offense. If anything changed, please be the benching of Dalton Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
Sarge, what are your thoughts on Dalton Schultz?
John, I've seen what Dalton. So I have a little bit more. I have a little bit more leeway for Dalton Schultz, because I know what Dalton Schultz could possibly be. I watched him when he played for the Dallas Cowboys, and I've said this over and over and over again, that when you look at Dalton Schultz, the one thing he's never been is a strong blocker. Never, never, never. And that's one of the reasons why the Dallas Cowboys got rid of him, because they wanted Mike McCarthy wanted to run the ball, and he knew that Dalton Schultz wasn't going to get it done. And so, he gets to Houston, you think that he would be he would have learned how to block, and he just has not. But I will say this, with the fresh start, with the new beginning, with the new offensive coordinator, maybe Nick Caley can see, hey, let's use Dalton's strong suit, strong points, and let's just see if we can get him to do some of the Rob Gronkowski stuff, some of the Tyler Higbee stuff. And and I'm not talking about the way they were able to stretch the field. I'm just saying the way that they were able to go post up, catch the ball, and then do what they need to do. Catch the ball first, but you got to catch the ball first.
Reginald Rager, Damian Pierce wasn't used because Bobby was top heavy. He needs one more shot to see if he can really come back from his rookie form. Is this the year he gets that shot?
Yeah, no, John, go ahead. I'm listening to you first.
I would say I'm indifferent on that. If he should get it, not from a person standpoint. And I will say this: we just saw Damian Pierce rush for, what was it, like 170 or something like that, 150 to end off the year. The talent is there. I think some situations at times it feels like because of the situation, the light ain't shining on you, so everybody can see your full strengths, and it's better to go somewhere else where the light may be a little bit bigger, brighter for you. John, and I feel like that way for Kenyon Green as well.
So what do we see from Damian Pierce in his rookie year? He was very explosive. He'd get through the holes. He'd do what he needed to do, right? He was, exactly what the Houston Texans was like, wow, this is what we need. And then all of a sudden, what happened, John? The scheme changed.
Everything changed. And to the point I made earlier, the presumed scheme will make it easier for the offensive line and the running backs.
Yeah, he's not a zone. He's not a zone runner. He's not zone blocking does not work for Damian Pierce, because he doesn't see the cutback lanes like Joe Mixon does. What he is a north to south left. Hey, you say run 32 splash. I'm running right through that 2-hole. That 2-hole should be open. If it's not, I may slide over just a little bit to make, but I am going to run wherever you say the play is supposed to run. He isn't good at looking at the cutback lanes, like I said, like Joe Mixon. And now you get that whole system out. You say, hey, 32 splash, run this way. We're running this way. Everybody block that way. And Dameon Pierce is one of those ones that I like the fact that he can take a hit and keep moving because he is a contact magnet. And this offense, if they use that run blocking scheme, this will benefit him very well.
Yeah. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast.
Make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, y'all enjoy y'all weekend. Peace.